My name is Tim Jacobus. I am best known for doing the Goosebumps covers, but thank you very much. That's not all that I'm going to show you today. I have some slides that I brought with me to show you some other artworks other than Goosebumps and kind of give you a little bit more background on me and kind of how we all got to where we are today. Before I get started, does anybody have anything they would need to hear? There you go. There's always one before I get rolling. What do you got, my man?
I just have two questions.
Okay.
So the covers for the Goosebumps books, did they have to get approved by R.L. Stine or the publishing company?
Good question. So, kids are already asking good questions. So, R.L. Stine and I, you would think we would have lots of conversation when we were doing the Goosebumps covers, but that wasn't the case. Illustrators work with art directors, authors work with editors, and then editors and art directors work together. So R.L. Stine and I were like 4 steps apart from one another. R.L. Stine never had a say in what was on the cover. He would only see it when it was complete. So he didn't get a chance to choose sketches or anything like that. The people at Scholastic chose for him. So he was as surprised as anybody else when he saw the cover. He just got a chance to see it 6 months before anybody else did.
And the other question I have is, what was it like when you got to see the creations that you designed on the covers get into a movie?
Geez, you're good. It was really great because everything that I do is 2-dimensional, and I create a scene, but it's a frozen scene. And I work real hard to bring my characters to life, but they're never actually moving. And to go to the theater and see the characters, especially the praying mantis on the street, as it tore around the city and was throwing stuff around, it was fantastic. It was really great to see it. And also, if you hung out in the movie long enough and waited till the end and they started to roll the credits, they started to show some of my old original artwork. But they did a new technique, there's a new technology where they were able to then make my artwork move. So the abominable snowman who's holding on to the street lamp, all of a sudden starts shaking the street lamp. And the praying mantis moved down the street. So I'm at the credits of the movie, and I'm more thrilled at the credits than I was at any other point in the movie. All right, so let's get started and then run some slides. If somebody could hit the lights back there. Ooh, now it gets scary. When I was in school, I wasn't the best artist. I wasn't the worst artist. This is something that I did when I was in high school. Again, there was plenty of other kids in my art class who were better artists than I was. I loved to paint and draw. I was heavily influenced by a guy named Roger Dean. Roger Dean was the illustrator who did all the album covers for a band named Yes. Yes is, I hear you laughing. It's been a long time since Yes was relevant. Actually, this was Yes's 50th year on the road. But the artwork is what really captured me. Loved the music too, but I loved Roger Dean's work, and I used to copy his work at the beginning. This right here is a copy of Roger Dean's work. This is the album cover for Relayer, but I changed it up and made it my own piece of art. As with art, the only difference with things is time and effort. The next piece I'm going to show you, I painted about 5 years later. The only difference is practice. When I did this piece, I had a friend who just loved my artwork. I was still trying to get my act together and get my portfolio together. A buddy of mine, thank God, just loved my artwork and would just call me up and say, hey, I'm ready for another piece of artwork. Will you paint me one? And I would paint them for him for a small amount of money. And it was great because I had a regular job during the day and I would paint at night. And he ended up with this nice collection. This one right here was, started out, we went to the Grand Canyon and we were going to do a straight painting of the Grand Canyon. Now, when we got there, took a lot of pictures and we started to hear some stories. So one of the legends at the Grand Canyon is the explorer Coronado, who got credit for discovering the Grand Canyon, which was there for millions of years, was looking for a place called the Lost Seven Cities of Gold. The Indians told him about it. And he became obsessed with that, and he was looking for a payoff. Went through the Grand Canyon, couldn't find it, went back down into Central America, turned around, brought his men back up there, and they began to search and search till it got to the point where his men started to leave him, and they all abandoned him, and he ended up alone wandering around the Grand Canyon, and he died there looking for the lost 7 cities of gold. Now, I love this story. I don't know if it's true or not, but I thought that was a great story. So that made me alter this painting. The background of this painting is exactly what the north face of the Grand Canyon looks like. The foreground is the entrance to the lost 7 cities of gold that Coronado could never find. I went to a small art school in New Jersey. We were so small, we were the downstairs to a doctor's office. 20 of us in the graduating class. They took us out to dinner for graduation. I bring this up because we had really super teachers, working artists who would come in and teach us stuff that was incredibly relevant, and it was just fantastic. I always like to make this point. There's some young people in here, but a lot of you have already been through school, but it's not where you go to school, it's how you go to school. And I learned so much where I was, even though it wasn't a big institution or a large college, but it gave me all the information and skills that I needed to get out and hit the road. Now, when I got out of art school, it's like, all right, I'm going to take on the whole world. And this is the very first painting I sold. Now, when you get out of art school and you start selling paintings, you're only selling paintings to 2 people, 2 types of people: your friends and your family. Those are the only ones who are going to buy this stuff at the beginning. Got $200 for this painting. And I thought, oh man, I am going to be rich. This is the greatest thing in the world. But I realized I was going to have to paint more stuff and different types of stuff to keep busy. Not everybody wants a weird painting hanging on their wall, so I had to really expand what I could do. Exactly. Now, you're laughing, but that's right. I used to paint pictures of food for A&P, for the Sunday paper. Now, this all sounds like a really silly job, but it happened once a week, and they would give me a list of the food that I needed to paint once a week. But what really was the best part about it was they had a box of photographs, and I would rummage through them for the subject matter of the week. They'd tell me which things were going to be on sale. A lot of times, they didn't have the photograph in the box, so then they'd go, okay, go down the store and grab some soda bread and take that home with you. Okay, great. And then I would do it kind of like a still life. Didn't take long for me to figure out how to make this work to my advantage. So say roast turkey was the special of the week. I love roast turkey. I would make sure that photograph conveniently got lost. I need a roast turkey. Sure, go ahead, take one home with you. I'd put it in the oven, I'd cook it, put it on the table, draw a nice picture of it, and put it right in the refrigerator. So not only was I getting work for the week, I was getting my food for the week. Excellent, excellent freelance job. Again, still working on my portfolio. What I was trying to do is get 6 or 8 really good paintings together that I could take to the city and show the book publishers what I could do. I was skipping a whole lot of steps. I was being very bold. I was very ignorant, and I'm glad that I didn't know what I know today, and I kept on pushing through. Again, all I needed was 6 or 8 paintings to take in, and finally got them done. This is the first paperback I ever got. It's called The Fugitive in Transit. It was done by Daw Books. This is the first painting I'm also showing you that had a human figure in it. Because I do fantasy type artwork, it's really important that my figures in my paintings look realistic. The way I do that is with photographs. In this particular case, this was my wife, my ex-wife now, Laura, and I got her to lay down on an ironing board, and I took a Polaroid picture of her. This way you could get the proper perspective and the proper lighting. I could have made this up from scratch, but I'm not going to get that exact lighting and exact detail, so I use photographs on a regular basis. This painting came along, and I needed to have this evil, menacing eye staring out at the viewer. I had seen this evil, menacing eye my whole life, staring at me from across the kitchen table. So I hired my father for the job. And he's out there scaring everybody else the same way he scared me and my 2 sisters. There you go. You guys recognize the haunted mask?
Yep.
This was one of the big sellers in the Goosebumps series. Behind the haunted mask is my goddaughter, Jessie. And I said, Jessie, do you want to be on a Goosebumps cover? Oh, yeah, Uncle Jake, I absolutely do. I want to be on a Goosebumps cover. Told all her friends. Brought her over the house, sat her down, got the camera out. I said, okay, Jessie, I want you to put this mask over your face. At that point, she realized no one was going to recognize her on that Goosebumps cover. Man, was she mad at me. You see that horrible face on that mask? That's nothing compared to the horrible face going on behind the mask. She wouldn't talk to me for the longest time. Luckily, this became one of the biggest sellers in the Goosebumps series, has sold over 3 million copies, so I was able to get a couple boxes of books to ship out to her, and she could prove to her friends at least that was the top of her head on that Goosebumps cover. R.L. Stine wrote the books at the same time I did the covers, so I never got a finished book to read. He always would send me something like this. It would tell me the title of the book, and I would get as little bit as a sentence or as much as maybe 1 page of written material. Not much to go on at the beginning, but I always like that. And I don't know why, but R.L. stuff just hit me right, and I could always see it. I was never blocked or couldn't figure out what to do. So now we get started. First thing I would do is thumbnail sketches, scribbles. These aren't for anybody but me. Fill up the page with them, and I would just keep putting down ideas. It's kind of like taking notes. So I didn't care what they looked like as finished product, but I, in my head, would go, yeah, that's a boat, that's a fish, that's this, that's that. And then as you would continue to do pages of them, certain ideas would keep coming back around again. And you know those were your better ideas. So I would draw those up, 8 by 10. Now, this is regular 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. Got to understand, we're going back in time. There was no digital anything. There was no email. So all my sketches were done with pencil, and then they were faxed over to Scholastic, and they made all their judgments and all their decisions off of faxes. Every Goosebumps book had 3 versions. This was for the book Deep Trouble 2, and so I had 3 versions of what would be going on in the book, and they decided that they would go with this one. This told the story the best. The story is about a large mutant goldfish that is obviously going to be a problem. So now we're ready. I got it back, and it's time to get going. I worked with acrylic paints. Acrylic paints are a water-based paint that dry very quickly. Love it. Can't work with oils because they never dry. If you see me, my hands move. They also shake. I love laying my hands down on my artwork. I like touching my artwork. So the fact that it dries quickly, and once it's dry, there's nothing you can do with it. It takes a lot to damage it. So it's the perfect medium for me. It actually didn't dry fast enough. I used to paint with a hairdryer in my left hand and a paintbrush in my right hand, just to speed up the process. The next step is what I call a color comp. Well, I didn't invent the term. That's what it's called, a color comp. It's a mini painting. Idea here is to take something small, spend no more than an hour on it. You want to work out your colors. So I would just take a Xerox of the original sketch, paint it on a board, and quickly paint it. This is where I want to take all my chances color-wise. Experiment with a couple of things, because once I get my color set here and go to the large painting, I'm not going to deviate from it. The idea is I don't want to get to the final painting, paint the whole background green, spend a whole day doing all intricate detail, and at the end of the day scratching my head and going, ooh, should have painted that blue, and having to waste a whole nother day. So these things save me a ton of time. So now we're getting ready to go to the final painting. We have our color comp, we have our sketch, which we just put in a Xerox and blew up, and now the board underneath is 20 by 20. First thing I would do is I'd take out the airbrush and I would just cover the board. I hate working on whiteboard. And I also paint in layers. So what I'm going to do next is transfer down the things that are the farthest away in the painting first. We have a coral reef we're going to build, so I transfer down and start on the stuff that's way in the background. Then I start to build the next layer on top, and you can see it's a little bit darker. Because it's a little bit darker, it's moving forward. Paint some more into it so you see your darkest darks and your lightest lights are in the foreground of the painting. That's how you create real depth. It's the easiest trick in the world, but it puts excellent depth in everything you do. A couple of more details, add some beams of light. Now I'm ready to add my two main elements. Because we're making a giant goldfish, I wanted to have a sunken ship at the bottom. People are always going, oh, there's so many colors, there's millions of colors, and that's not quite how I work. It's almost monochromatic, meaning it's one color, light, medium, and dark. On the boat, light, medium, and dark brown. That's all I used at the beginning. Let it all come together, let it take shape. Then I'll throw a couple of accent colors on it. But everything is all very simple. Keep it simple. If you're a painter, anyone in here is a painter, keep it simple at first. You can always come back and put the accents in. Don't think about putting all the hot spots in right away. Now we're ready to put the main character on. You can see I've started to transfer it down, and you've heard me use that term transfer. The way I do it is I have that oversized Xerox, I flip it down, and I have this stuff called Sorel paper, and it's a chalk-based paper that sits on the painting. I have my giant Xerox over top, and I literally trace around my original drawing. I love my original drawing, and I don't want to waste time drawing it again, so I transfer it down. The nice thing about working this way is it gives you the opportunity of moving things left and right, up and down, while you're creating your painting, instead of transferring everything down at once, and then you're kind of stuck, and you're painting around things. So you can see I'm painting stuff in layers. And now I'm going to start to block it in just like the same thing we did with the ship, except now we're doing it with yellows. Lights, mediums, and darks, just blocking it in, no real detail. Then I'm going to work on it until I get it pretty much where I want it. Now, I like to use airbrush. Airbrush is controlled spray painting. So, here's our issue. We have this nice blue background, and we have this yellow goldfish, and I don't want the yellow to get on the blue. So, I have this other kind of paper that I use called Frisket paper, and it's, imagine like saran wrap, except really nice saran wrap. And I can stick it to my painting, then I can take out an X-Acto knife and I can carve around the fish, and you see me peeling that piece of plastic off. When I'm done peeling it off, the whole background of the painting is covered with plastic except for the fish. And now I can go in there with the airbrush, which is a nice blending tool, and I can start to fool around with that, keeping all the yellow right where I want it and have it go nowhere else. There it is, nearly finished. I'll give you a nice close-up. You get the nice detail of brushwork around the eyes, but you can also see down on its belly where the airbrush comes in. It also, you try to soften with the airbrush some of the stuff that's off in the distance. Again, hard edges in the foreground, softer edges in the background, creates way more depth. And that's Deep Trouble 2. Guys probably recognize this. This is Welcome to Dead House. This was the very first Goosebumps painting. When Goosebumps started, nobody was real sure that it was going to do well. It wasn't that everybody said, "Whoo, this is going to be such a big hit." Everybody was afraid. I didn't even get paid full price for my first cover. They were worried that it just wasn't going to take off. So the interesting part is that up till like book 5 or book 6, there was real talk about canceling the series. And then, for some reason, all you guys when you were little started telling your friends and passing the books around, and all of a sudden the sales went from, started to trail off to it just started to rise, and it never stopped rising. Today, I forget what the numbers are, they're astronomical. 400 million books sold? I don't know. I think I'm pretty close to it with 400 million. All started right here, and nobody knew. So, whatever you do in your life, you never know when the big deal's coming along. So, whatever you do, be giving your best effort all the time, because you just never know when that thing is going to happen. This one's How I Learned to Fly. Whenever you saw somebody's feet on a Goosebumps cover, they were always wearing Chuck Taylor, high top, all-star sneakers. The art directors at Scholastic thought that was the coolest thing in the world because it had nothing to do with anything. They just kept showing up and showing up and showing up. When I was growing up, those were the best sneakers you could buy. Me and all my buddies wore them all the time, to the point where you wear them long enough, they start to stink. And my mother used to say, "Oh, when are you going to get rid of those stinking sneakers?" Just stop it. And she goes, "Someday, you're going to have to get a job where you have to wear real shoes." I said, "Oh, okay." And time went on, and I never got that job where I needed real shoes. And I kept wearing my Cons. And when every time a Goosebumps cover came out, or a book came out, I would buy it at the store, and I gave it to my mother, and she had a collection. And every time I gave it to her, she would be like, "Oh, that's so cool. I love the new cover." And when she would see the sneakers, it was the same response every time. She'd roll her eyes and go, "Oh, and there's those stinking sneakers." So the real reason why these sneakers are on every cover, it bugs my mom. A Night in Terror Tower. I love this painting, not because it's the best or anything else about it. I ran out of time. They give me tons of time to do Goosebumps covers, but in order to make a living, I did lots of other covers at the same time. Usually I need about 5 days to do a nice job on a Goosebumps cover. I didn't have 5 days, I had one. Got up in the morning, started to paint, did not stop, did not get up, painted into the early evening, pretty burnt out, kept on going. 3 a.m., my eyes are burning. 6 a.m., I started to wrap it up. By 7, I was done. I jumped in the car, and I drove to Manhattan, and I delivered it. In the illustration business, art can't be late. A painting one day late, especially in a series like Goosebumps that was lock, stock, and had to be out the door on time, you're going to get fired for that. This is a firing offense. So no matter what, you get the job done. And luckily, in this particular case, painting still looks okay. This was one of the special edition books. And when we came out with this special edition book, everybody decided, hey, you know what we need? We need some sort of mascot or spokesman for the Goosebumps series. Not one of the characters, but let's come up with somebody. So this was the very first guy I came up with. He's a ghost, got the really long hair, and they're like, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's what we want. You can't tell if it's a guy or a girl. And because he's a ghost, what else are we going to have him do? Because we want our guy to play hockey and ride a bicycle and all kinds of other stuff. I was like, oh, yeah, good point, good point. So I took the same guy, and I gave him a haircut, and turned him into a skeleton. And that's how Curly was born. Curly's been on more book covers than any other Goosebumps character, although there's never been a story about Curly, so we don't know where he's from or what he's done. He also became so popular that he got his own mascot, and through a reader's poll, you guys named him Drool. I also had the luxury of writing my own autobiography. It has the dubious distinction of being the shortest Goosebumps book, not because I couldn't think of anything to write, but because we decided we wanted to put pictures in ours. All the Goosebumps, regular Goosebumps, were about 120 pages. In order to put high-quality paper in there that we could print art on, we had to cut it to 60. This is a hard book to find anymore. It was kind of a limited edition run. You used to be able to pick it up for like $2. You can still find it at garage sales and thrift stores. But if you try to buy this on Amazon, it is stupidly priced. I've seen it as high as $400. Do not buy this book for $400. I beg of you. Goosebumps became Goosebumps Series 2000. It was a nice shift because they decided they were going to let RL write a little bit edgier, and I also got the opportunity to do a little edgier art. This type of art would have never flown on the original Goosebumps. You can see that guy in the background, his eye is hanging out, and this guy's hands in the foreground are a little bit scraped up and a little bit bloody. We never did that in original Goosebumps. There was monster blood, and monster blood was always green, but we could never show anything where it was hurt or this disgusting. This was fun, though. I like disgusting. This is probably a piece, unless you're a fan and checked out on the internet, Goosebumps Series 2000 there were 25 printed covers, and there was 26 covers created. This was the very last Series 2000 cover. I was working on it, and I got a call from Scholastic, and they said, yeah, you almost done with it? I was like, yeah, it's nearly finished. They said, okay, don't even bother sending it in. We're going to pay you for it, but Goosebumps is over. And just like that, I was out of a job. Didn't see it coming, but that's the nature of the art business. So I had been doing this for better than 10 years, and all of a sudden, I was kind of left out hanging. So I had to kind of scramble to see what I could do. Luckily, the digital revolution came along, and I had the opportunity to make some changes. People really didn't want Goosebumps stuff right after it was over. It was funny. It went from being incredibly popular to being incredibly unpopular. I associate it with it. Imagine if I was in a hair band in the 90s, and it turned the year 2000, and everybody was grunge, and I still had my tight pants on and my big hair, and I was getting a little fat, and they're like, yeah, no, we don't want that anymore. So I had to kind of reinvent what I was doing. Switching over to digital gave me a chance to try some different stuff. I got a chance to do more editorial and more advertising work. I also got a chance to do some medical illustrations, and I got to tell you, there is hardly any difference between medical illustrations and horror illustrations. They are all the same.
Is this all now digital?
This is digital, correct.
So you're no longer at that point?
At that point, right. We're switching over, right. Also gave me an opportunity to bring out some humor stuff. I got an opportunity to do this for, just as a joke. I know it's still amazing that Keith Richards is alive, and I don't know if I got mixed lips big enough, but they're pretty close. I also got a chance to take those same type of characters and, again, do more magazine type work. This was a story about how history is being lightened and revised just to be more politically correct. Again, fun to do characters and stretch them out. I also got an opportunity to go on another series that was just horrific. This was just the scariest stuff I ever worked on. I actually kind of was worried whether I should bring some of it to show people because there might be some kids who are too small to see it. You're not. You seem pretty cool. So this is by far, hands down, the scariest thing I ever worked on. Yes, I know. You poor kid. It was awful. Yes, I got hired to do Teletubbies work right after Goosebumps stuff. And I wasn't happy, but if this was work, and I'm more than happy to try anything. So I learned to paint these guys. Early on, when my name came up, the guy who owned Teletubby at the time was going, they're like, yeah, hey, you know who you should use? Tim Jacobus is available. He's a dependable artist. He's like, Tim, yeah, it's not ringing a bell. And they're like, yeah, the guy who did the Goosebumps books. And he said, oh, no, I don't want that guy. He's going to turn my little Teletubbies into monsters with fangs and horns. And it's like, that's a pretty real fear. I could get that. You see me doing just monsters. So of course he's going to expect that. So I said, here's the deal. You've given me a list of art to do. I'm going to do the first one and turn it in. And if you like it, I get the job and we'll continue on. And you can pay for that. Or if you think that I am not good and you don't like what I've done, you get that artwork for free. And he said, oh, that's perfectly fair. I'll go for that deal. So I painted him his first piece. I would have loved to have turned this in and shown this to him, but I definitely would have got fired. So I saved that one for you guys, and I painted a legitimate one, and I actually got the job.
I love it. I want that one.
When I was in art school in 1980, whatever, early 80s, Stephen King was king. And we were all teenagers in art school saying, we want to be on a Stephen King cover. We want to, that's the goal, that's the goal, that's the goal. Full cycle, we go 20 years around the clock, and they're reissuing 3 of Stephen King's famous books, and they're putting it in a hardback edition, and they call me up and say, hey, do you want to do a Stephen King cover? I'm all about it. So I got a chance to do a remake of The Shining, and I also took the opportunity, like I said, where I like to put people in that I know. So I took the camera and I turned it around, and that is me on the Stephen King cover. So not only did I get to do the cover, I got to be on the cover. Also, the interesting thing is this started out as a full color piece. It was going to be blues and purples, very Goosebumps-like in its colors. And when I had turned in the original sketch, it was pencil, and then I colored the hands in red, and then I did a scan of it. Now we are in the digital age. And I sent it over to them, and they were going, oh, that's it. That's it. We want a black and white piece of artwork with just the red blood to be the color of it. So that happened completely by accident. It wasn't planned, but it did make it a very, very intriguing cover. Now, I love black and white. So we went 20 years of Goosebumps painting traditional. Then we went 10 more years in the other direction going digital. And I hadn't painted again in a long time. So just a few years back, I decided I was going to start to paint again. Except I wanted to do something different, so I'm painting big. These are 2 feet by 7 feet. I love it. Back to the acrylics. Big brush, stand up, move my arms around. It's fantastic to do. I love black and white. I can't get enough of it. But you always got to go back to your first love. Goosebumps movie came out a few years ago, 2-3 years ago. At the end of the Goosebumps movie, we see Jack Black walk up to the glass case. The invisible boy starts typing on his typewriter. Jack Black turns to the camera, screams, and he morphs into a Goosebumps cover. And then we go to credits. That's the Goosebumps cover. They called me up, so I was able to put Jack Black on the cover. So I am in the Goosebumps movie for literally 1 second. If you blink, you don't see it. So I blinked the first time.
So, quick question.
Sure.
Was that book that was just there, the Invisible Boy's Revenge? Did that actually get published as a real book?
It didn't. Nope, this was strictly just for the movie. It was a fake. So there's Jack Black. There's the glass case. You can see the typewriter.
If that actually published.
Yep, nope, that was strictly just for the movie. Also got a chance to do the soundtrack for the album. I got a chance to do the interior art and also the interior spread and the cover. I wanted to make it look like some long-lost Goosebumps cover that kind of got taken away. This is done digitally. It's really important. I've spent a lot of time making sure my digital art looks like my current or my past.
Did you base the skeleton on Danny Elfman or anybody?
No, the skeleton is Curly. We've had a lot of iterations of him, so I brought him back out again and kind of looked at my old stuff and said, all right, let's make sure he still has those same qualities. I really, really wanted to be true to the old stuff so that literally somebody would go, wow, did he paint that 25 years ago? So, any of you have stopped by my desk, my table here today? I got an opportunity to do a poster for the country of the Netherlands. They promote children's reading incredibly over there. It's a whole national program where they get all the kids to read. They give them incentive to read. They put advertisements on TV. They do posters. And they decided this year's theme was going to be called Shivers, as in Goosebumps. And so I got an opportunity to do the canals of Amsterdam. The little girl is reading, and then the monsters coming to life. So I am still scaring kids wherever I go. My mother found this not too long ago. This is one of my very first drawings. Yeah, George Washington. What? George Washington? What? What is he physically doing something? Or yes, this is George Washington. He has no arms. His hair is awesome. His hair is awesome. And luckily I could spell my name right at the bottom. So I've come a long way. I started out here. At least I remembered to put arms on. This is where I started, And it took about 30 years before I painted something like this.
I love that his feet are 2 different sizes.
There you go. This is one that hangs over the bed at my house. I love this piece of artwork. It's got a little bit of everything. It's got, above and below the water turns to sand. We got flying whales. There's just a little bit of everything going on. This is the type of artwork that I love to do. I love to be creative, and I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to continue on with that. Lastly, Albert Einstein once said, an imagination is more powerful than knowledge. Think about that for a second. An imagination is more powerful than knowledge. When you leave here today, go out there and start exercising your imaginations. You're going to be really surprised how far they take you. God, I know I've been really surprised how far my imagination has taken me. Thank you very much. Somebody could get the lights? So I think we still have a couple more minutes for some Q&A. I just lambasted you with all kinds of stuff. So anything, yeah.
Those color comps that you
Yes.
do you keep those?
Yes, I still have the color comps, and I still have the 2 alternate versions in pencil, all in folders. They're in my attic, and they're still there. So yes.
How did you get hired into Goosebumps?
Good question. I worked for Scholastic for a number of years prior to Goosebumps. I'm going to say 5 now. That may be proven out to be different if somebody does research. I think 5. Had done other books. Never had been on a series. It was always one and done. But I proved to be dependable, and I would get stuff done on time, and all my work had a quality to it. That is really a big thing in the art game, that you're consistent and dependable.
I'm assuming Scholastic still has all your original paintings?
They do.
Now, have they ever done a gallery showing of them?
No, it's funny you mention it. There's an effort right now that I'm putting forward to get the artwork out of the closet. It's in a closet. This is what I understand. It's in a closet somewhere. I'm trying to either buy it, lease it, rent it, borrow it, something, just to get it out so everybody gets an opportunity to see.
I would imagine a traveling exhibit of
I would love, and I would travel with it. It's something that's an idea that I put out. I don't know what kind of feedback. It's a big company, and it really is hard to get things to happen. But that's my thing. It's a shame. Art is to be looked at, and I understand that they have an investment and they want to protect it. But everything has been photographed and turned digital, and I have copies and they have copies. So the risk is incredibly small that something bad will happen. And if something bad does happen, we've got duplicate digital reproductions in shape now. So hopefully in the future we'll see something. And that's it, right, yeah, exactly.
Question, as far as are you able to do because I know you said you did the autobiography. Also,
Yes.
it's $20 on Amazon.
Oh, it's 20? Awesome.
$20.
That's good. Good. 20's still a push, but anyway.
Keep going. Doing a coffee table book of all the original sketches and something like that, or is that something where you can't because
I would have to call and have a conversation. Here's how odd the licensing law is, and so there is a book coming out by a small New Jersey book publisher called The Art of Goosebumps. This guy got a hold of the company, said, I'd like to put out this book, paid for all the rights, and he's putting out a book. It's my art, and some of the other artists who did the Give Yourself, and the current guy who's doing it, and he's allowed to go out and make money with that. I don't get any of that. That's not my license. So even a book about me and about my art is not my possession, which is...
Can you do the alternate?
I think I can do that one pretty safely.
Because I think pretty much everybody in this room plus everybody else would be like, wait a minute, we get to see the alternate.
Yeah, that would be, if it was my book, that would be the way I would present it. Here's the comps, here's 2 alternate versions, here's the finish, but we'll see what happens in the long run. But there is a book coming out, and it's not my book.
Did you have to, would you have to, have you ever had to resubmit a piece of artwork that they didn't like? Where, every time, did you have to like apply for, not really apply for the job, but like like at any moment would they go somewhere else?
It's all legitimate. I think if I started to miss deadlines and stuff like that, they would think about replacing me. As long as you're dependable and you're in, they want the look to stay consistent. If it's doing well, of course, they want it. But if a book is doing poorly, sure, you're on the risk of being knocked out. Now, changes to paintings is something that's different. A lot of times there is a lot of changes that comes with commercial art, and it used to be harder when it was traditional art because you would mail it to them, they would look at it and they'd say, oh, we want something, and they'd mail it back to you, and then you'd make the changes. And some changes which are simple in the digital world, like change the color of the background, all of a sudden take on two different lives. If it's a painted piece, change the background, it's like, oh my God, that's 3 days. Or digital, it's 3 seconds. They didn't do that a lot with the Goosebumps. I was incredibly blessed. They liked what I did. The biggest and most notable change that I had to do was on Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes. There's 2 gnomes. One of the gnomes is scratching the side of his head. In the original, he was picking his nose. Everybody thought it was cool at the beginning, and then right at the last second, just before it went out, they kind of panicked and said, these are going in the schools, let's get his finger out of his nose. Simple change. That one wasn't bad.
Did they keep the old one where he's picking his nose?
No, because this was traditional art, so you're painting on the original, so out the finger goes. Now that's what's nice about digital is, yeah, every time I finish a job, I keep that one because that's the one I like, and if a client changes it, he can change it 1,000,000 times. That's his, this one's mine.
Would you return to doing Goosebumps if they...
Sure. Oh, absolutely. There was a rumor out there, and I didn't start it, and maybe somebody misunderstood what I said, was they said, are you over Goosebumps? You know, and whatever the thing was, like, I said, yes, I'm so over this. That's not true. That never happened. I didn't say it. And if I said it, they misinterpreted what went on. I would go back and do a Goosebumps cover with R.L. Stine anytime they asked. No problem. I think it would be great. I don't know if we would need to do a whole series, but it would be cool to do a special edition just for the old fans. Oh, in the back. I'll get back to you.
I don't know if you do, but do you think like ever in the future if you do join back, do you think you could make like t-shirts or stuff like that?
T-shirts would be cool. Well, right now, there's a company out there called Creepy Company. Look them up on the internet. They're doing awesome recreations of the Goosebumps covers. They're super nice shirts. Check them out. The girl who runs the company is a real nice woman. That's where you go right now for good Goosebumps shirts. Yeah.
Did you design the covers for the Goosebumps Horrorland book?
The Horrorland books are being done by somebody else. And he does nice artwork. I have no problem with it. His art is actually very cool, and the design of the Goosebumps Horrorland books is nice.
Since when I looked at them side by side, the style looked different.
Yeah, completely different style. Yep.
Do you get any royalties if your art is used on t-shirts or anything like that?
I do not. So what they did was they did a buyout contract. They would pay me more for my art than like a normal place would pay. They would usually, the usual book deal is you paint the painting, you turn it in, they use it, they give you back, and you get paid a price. These guys decided to keep it, so they paid me more to keep it, and they got also the rights to do whatever they wanted with it. So yeah, no, is the short answer. And on that depressing note, yes. Well, thank you.
Is there a particular medium that you haven't painted for that you want to? So like comic book series, any sort of video games, or any...
I've done a little bit of everything. Yeah, I've done the video games. I've done album covers are coming back again, which is a lot of fun. No, the local grocery store doesn't need me anymore. Doing comic book art is a whole different animal. I have friends. I know Andy and Adam Kubert very well. They live close to me, and I'm in awe of their style. That panel work and doing multiple imagery and just putting it out as quickly as they do numbs my brain. It's just, there's lots of stuff that I incredibly love and adore, only because I haven't got the slightest idea how they do it. So I'll try anything, but there's no one thing where I'm like, oh, this is it, this is the thing. I've had a chance to do a little bit of animation using the simple programs like Animate, Adobe Animate, and I like it. I've been doing it for more of a commercial aspect for a while, so that's been another way to generate some interest in something new and something different. All right, bud, we're going to end on you.
Have you put any other people besides the people you said you did on Goosebumps covers?
I did. My niece is on the camp. There's a bunch of people walking along, and all of them are invisible except the last girl in line. Ghost Camp.
I do remember.
That's right, Ghost Camp. That's my niece, Megan. She's on the Goosebumps cover.
The girl that's not in the
She's the one who's not invisible.
Anyone else?
Camp Jelly Jam, the guy with his pants hiked up and all that. That would be me. All right, everybody, thank you very much. And just one more thing. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate all the support that you guys have given the Goosebumps series over the years. This is an incredible run. The fact that you guys are interested and still find joy in it is a thrill to me. So thank you very much.